The Brits, one summer holiday every 36 months, but they won't be able to go from London to Athens because that's more than 1,500 kilometres. We won't be able to go from Sydney to Melbourne. We can't go from Sydney to Melbourne because there and back is over 1,700 kilometres. And this mob of mayors want to cut aviation emissions, so one flight per person every 3 years. So, Matt, the aviation world goes broke.
Absolutely. And the thing here is, if we thought COVID was bad, wait till you hear about the plans for net zero. Because some of this C40 agenda is obviously pretty out there and probably will never be implemented. But even at a macro level here, if you look at the International Energy Agency projections, they're saying that they want oil demand to fall from 100 billion barrels a day, which it is at the moment. It's just hit a record level, by the way. It's back over the record it hit in 2019 pre-COVID. From there to 77 billion barrels a day in just 8 years, just 7 years now, actually, 2030. So in the next 7 years, a fall of almost 25%. That would be a greater reduction in oil demand than we experienced during COVID. And just think what happened. We stopped all flights. We stopped driving around. We stopped going to work every day. We stopped dropping our kids off at school. So net zero just by 2030 is their plans, at least, is to have a bigger impact on our ability to travel, see our loved ones, than during COVID. I mean, this is absurd. It's not going to happen.
But you see, Matt,
we're telling lies to the Australian people.
You're a Queenslander.
And eventually those lies will catch up with us.
Yeah, you're a Queenslander. Ban petrol cars, whatever. But if you travel from Brisbane to the Gold Coast, they're spending billions of dollars building a 6 and 8 lane highway. What for? If there are going to be no petrol car, what's all this about? The contradictions are enormous. You have said and written that an honest appraisal is needed on the cost, risks and feasibility of continuing down this net zero pathway. Why wouldn't Peter Dutton get out there and say this day after day? You're absolutely right. What are the risks? What are the costs? What's the feasibility of going down this net zero pathway? Because we're heading over a cliff. I've said for 10 years, it's a national economic suicide note. We should have that. Shouldn't the coalition be prosecuting that argument?
Well, I'm very much on that side, Alan. I'm encouraging Peter and others to do that. I can't read people's minds and tell you why they're doing the opposite. I would say that at least over the last few years, and I think Peter's done a good job of The Voice, so I'm still holding out hope here, but over the last few years, a bunch of pollsters has hijacked the leadership of the Liberal and National parties, and we've effectively made decisions based on what we think you want us to think, not what we think is in the best interest of the country or long-term for our children or grandchildren. Just what do people think at the moment? Let's just do that. Now, as I say, I've got some hope for Peter Dutton and his leadership, because we didn't apply that formulaic, pollster-driven approach with regards to The Voice. No. If we had have done that with The Voice, we would have been on the yes side.